Welcome, everyone. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining me today because we are unpacking something that is, quite literally, a matter of life and death. In today's explainer, we're completely demystifying Illinois AED laws. Breaking down all those confusing legal requirements and liability concerns around having an automated external defibrillator at your workplace. And to make sure we've got the absolute best info, we're pulling insights directly from AED professionals. They're a local Palatine-based supplier who's been diligently equipping Illinois and helping businesses build compliant programs since way back in 2003. They know the state's laws inside and out, so let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this, because if you manage a facility or run a school or own a business here in Illinois, this is undoubtedly your most pressing question. Does your business actually need an AED? What is your actual bottom line legal obligation here? It can feel like a massive gray area, right? Are you mandated to have one? Does having one expose you to lawsuits? Well, today, we are going to completely clear up that confusion with definitive answers straight from the state statutes.
Here is our quick roadmap for this explainer. First, does Illinois require AEDs? Second, who must have an AED? Third, the Good Samaritan Law. And fourth, building a compliant program. I promise, you'll walk away from this knowing your exact legal exposures and the exact steps to build a totally defensible program.
Section 1. Does Illinois require AEDs? Let's go ahead and separate the myth of universal, sweeping AED laws from the actual reality of state regulations. We're really looking at two very distinct legal realities here. First off, there is absolutely no blanket mandate for all businesses. Illinois doesn't have some sweeping law forcing every single business from a tiny corner store to a massive corporate office to have an AED. But, and this is a big but, Illinois happens to be one of the stricter states in the country for certain specific industries. It's a specific settings mandate. So for a lot of organizations, the question isn't just, should we get one? It's, do we fall into one of these highly regulated categories where we literally have to? Let's move to and see how this builds. Right into Section 2, who must have an AED? Let's look closely at those heavily regulated organizations.
This is absolutely crucial, so let's break it down. First up, physical fitness facilities. Under Citation 210 ILCS 74, gyms and health clubs must keep at least one AED on site. But it's not just about hanging a box on the wall. You legally need a trained user available during staffed hours, testing records, and a written emergency plan. Next, public K-12 schools. Citation 105 ILCS 5/22-30 requires AED access and trained personnel specifically at athletic events, along with an EMS notification plan. And finally, dental offices. Under the Illinois Dental Practice Act, if you're performing procedures that involve sedation or anesthesia, you are required to have an AED ready to go.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is, what if you aren't on that list? You might be thinking, great, I run a standard corporate office, I have no legal requirement. Well, not so fast. Even if your business lacks a strict state mandate, OSHA first aid expectations still apply to all employers. Plus, there is a general legal duty of care that applies to your workplace. Basically, doing absolutely nothing when a medical emergency strikes is rarely a defensible position in court.
Which naturally brings us to Section 3, the Good Samaritan Law. Let's tackle those liability fears head on.
Look, the number one fear holding organizations back, even more than the cost, is getting sued. What if my staff uses it wrong? What if we hurt someone? Let's read the law directly. Illinois provides civil immunity for users, acquirers, trainers, and authorizing physicians acting in good faith, absent gross negligence. So the crucial point is, the state completely protects you legally. They want you to help. If you attempt a rescue in good faith and you aren't engaging in gross negligence, the law is entirely on the side of those trying to save a life.
Now, to make sure that good faith effort is legally sound and medically effective, there are some best practices. First, medical direction. A statewide physician medical director isn't mandatory in Illinois, but having that medical oversight is highly recommended. As for training, it is absolutely required by law for designated responders in those regulated facilities like gyms. But even if you aren't in a regulated facility, it is incredibly highly recommended that all organizations train their responders.
All right, Section 4, building a compliant program. Let's pivot from the legal statutes to the actual how-to. Enter the 5 Pillars framework. The team at AED Professionals uses this highly structured, memorable roadmap to make sure your people are protected and your program is totally defensible. It's 5 steps: the right device, placement and access, training, maintenance and testing, and a written emergency plan. Let's run through these.
Pillar 1 is simply getting the right device for your specific setting. There are recognized, tailored options from every major brand out there: Zoll, Philips, Physio-Control, Cardiac Science, HeartSign, and Defib Tech. Whether you need something rugged for a muddy school athletic field or sleek for a quiet dental practice, there's a perfect fit.
3 to 5 minutes. That is the critical metric for Pillar 2, placement and access. That's the exact round-trip time frame required for retrieving the device during an emergency. You absolutely cannot lock this equipment away in a manager's office. It must be placed in an unobstructed, clearly signed location so someone can grab it and get back to the victim within that tiny 3 to 5 minute window.
And this brilliantly illustrates the final pieces of a fully compliant program coming together. Pillar 3 means having CPR and AED trained responders on your staff. Pillar 4 is maintenance and testing, tracking pads, batteries, running self-tests, and keeping readiness records. Pillar 5 is your documented response plan with 911 and EMS notification. And remember, keeping those readiness records and having that EMS notification plan, those are explicitly required by law if you operate a fitness facility or a school in Illinois.
Which brings us to our final thought. Mandate or not, is your organization ready to save a life? We've learned that Illinois has strict rules for gyms, schools, and dentists, and incredible Good Samaritan protections for everyone else. But beyond just checking a legal box, the real question is about readiness. If an emergency happens in your facility tomorrow, are you prepared? I urge you to evaluate your own readiness today. Reach out to a local specialist, get the right devices, and get your compliant program started. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, stay safe out there.